Hey everybody, Mattia here. I thought I would put together a video to show what animal hyperrealism is about and just explain how I went about recording the material, putting it together, naming conventions and such. So first things first, the library is not about distant recordings from animals in woods or the desert. It's about very close and dry animal vocalizations. To get that, for about half of the content, I hired movie and film production trained animals to be able to get that extra proximity and have the animal actually looking at the microphones while performing. And speaking of proximity, I thought I would include the distance from the animals in the file name itself. So the file naming conventions for the raw sections will read something like the name of the animal, the region where the animal is from, the distance from the animal, and then an actual description of the sound itself. In most cases, I use the Sunken CO100K along with the Sennheiser 8050 for the center image, whereas I use the two 8040s for the stereo image, and they're all condensed into the stereo files that are contained within the library. In one scenario, I had the chance to use an additional couple of Sunken CO100K for the stereo images. I had a couple of colleagues that also had them, and they were coming to the session. With that said, let's just look at a couple of examples from the raw section of the library. So here, for example, we have a common crow. So yeah, this is a sound we're all used to, and it's something that doesn't necessarily sound too fancy. But if we play it back at 1/4 speed in Reaper, we get this. And now that is a completely different sound, of course, and we can stretch that even further if we go to about 1/10 of the speed. So in this case, we'll just do it on the item itself. So yeah, hopefully you're getting an idea of what the library is about. It's about sounds that you can really stretch and play with at the point that you can transform an animal into something else completely. So the next example is a pig, which again doesn't sound that unusual at normal speed, but at half speed it sounds like this. And so on and so forth. Next up is Goose. So yeah, in this case, we were trying to kind of get closer to the goose, and it would just make these vocalizations and try to get away from us, so we had to take long breaks not to stress the animal too much. If we pitch this sound down, this is what we get. And suddenly you end up with this very guttural kind of vocalization, which is quite interesting. A good example of material that pitches in a way that you wouldn't expect is a donkey. So normal speed is like this. But if you pitch it down, you get this. And it's quite interesting to hear that kind of foghorn element alongside the metal scrape element. It's just two things that you wouldn't think you get out of an animal sound. The last example that I have for the raw section is this exotic bird that I recorded in a bird wildlife center in the UK. This is how it sounds in real time. And this is how it sounds like when it's 1/4 speed. So this is probably my favorite sound to play with as far as pitch shifting is concerned. Mostly because of the nature of the sound itself, it just makes me think of the Jurassic pretty much immediately, but also you have these slight reflections that you barely get in the raw file that become suddenly evident when you slow it down to 1/4 speed. So this is pretty much it for the demo of the raw section. Next up we're going to look at the demo of the cheat section and the design section. So for the cheat section, I used an approach previously used by Boom for the creatures library. It's mostly about human vocalizations played at lower speed and processed in a way they no longer sound human. So this is an example of one of the files. And here's another couple. So yeah, the last one, for example, is just me pushing air through my teeth, and it's just played back at 1/4 speed. If you want to have a laugh, you can probably just speed these up 4 times and listen back to what you get, and you'll just realize what the processing is behind them, etc. Here's an example of an aquatic creature. Another large creature. And some variation on the same theme. So this is what the cheat section is about. It's about content that mostly has kind of low-mid presence. It's not quite fully designed, and it's good for layering. The designed section of the library is made up by sounds that are pretty much finished, and I wouldn't really process further personally. So for this specific section, I thought I would just show you how you can use some of the material gathered in the raw section to create something that just doesn't exist in real life. Specifically, the sound of the alien frog from the video that I made for the library, if you've seen it. So this sound is created pretty much exclusively with content from the raw section of the library, played back at 25% speed. To create it, I pretty much dropped randomly 5 sounds in the session, and I've noticed that a Pelican Sound and a Flamingo sound played very well together. So the Pelican Sound in real time sounds like this. But if you slow it down, it sounds like this. Whereas the Flamingo sound sounds like this. Now the Flamingo sound has not only been pitched down, but it also has been cut in a way that has different playback speeds, which results in this kind of interesting tonal variation. I've then layered these with a Flamingo sound that has been processed to have verb, which I normally bake to have a little bit more control on. I've also had a Pelican sound that has been pitched down further so that I can have these kind of extra low elements. On top of these, I've added a chattering lorry sound which adds to the high end of the creature. I then added a raven in the tail. The attack is made by a pygmy goat. And we also have another pelican in the release of the sound. So this is how I made most of the designed section, just by using elements from the raw section and the cheat section, playing with them in speed and just adding effects and such. So hopefully all of this gives you an idea of what the library is about, what you can expect to find, but if you do have questions, just feel free to get in touch. And yeah, thanks for watching.